one of the things that about the title, to die well, begs the question, what does it mean to die well? And is there such a thing as a bad death? And big questions, and the title kind of provokes those questions. To answer the first one, what is a good death? I would say, what isn't a good death? I think what our culture wants to tell us, that a good death is one that is pain-free, peaceful, surrounded by loved ones, that doesn't take too long, but long enough, which is indeed a great way to die. And that's wonderful. But that in and of itself cannot be the definition of a good death. And you can see why. That if you hold that up as the standard for a good death, that means, well, we need to do everything we can to meet that standard, which then naturally leads down the road of assisted suicide and euthanasia, that we're going to try to make this process idealized, and then we're going to do everything we can to achieve that goal. So a dangerous way of thinking that is the definition of a good death. And if we look at, we just have to look at Jesus. I mean, he had the terrible death. I mean, isolated, tortured, abandoned, all those things. And yet we hold his death up as the good death par excellence. So culture's definition of a good death, we can't use that. So what is a good death? Well, that's a good question. St. Robert Bellarmine said, in order to die well, one must live well. Okay, so how do you live well? Well, he talks about, the necessity of living a life of virtue, frequenting the sacraments, which is all part of our faith, right? That's what we desire to do as Catholics, is to live a life of virtue, frequent the sacraments, availing ourselves to confession when we inevitably fail. And so that's part of it too. And I think another big part of living well so that we can die well is trying to detach ourselves from the world in the sense of worldly things. I mean, the saints write about this all the time. Ignatius writes about this holy indifference, or John the Cross talks about freeing ourselves from detachments to creatures. So being detached from things of the world, yet while living in the world, is, I think, an important part of living well, because then what ends up being a death that's not so good? Well, it's when I think people cling, when they cling to things of the world, and they're good things, or their life is a good thing, friends and family are a good thing. But if they cannot see beyond that, cannot see beyond the spiritual realities that await them, there's this desperation, this clinging. And so then it becomes very, very difficult for someone to go through the dying process without being afraid, unnecessary. I mean, everybody's afraid a little bit, I get that. But by being just terrified and hanging on and wanting everything last done to the moment of death, futile care arises out of that because they're clinging. And so I think that's what's so important about dying well. It begins begins with our baptism, right? When we're infused with the grace of the Holy Spirit, which is nurtured with the sacraments, confirmation, and nurturing those, that God within us, so that as we live all through the bumps and ups and downs, as the end of life approaches, we're ready as we can be.